So for me, I had a relatively significant failure in thinking better, being better for me today. So I want to talk about that a little bit. It relates to my personal life, family life, which for me is probably one of the tougher situations, environments for me. I talked about it a little bit before, but my wife has some health issues. She has multiple sclerosis, and it's progressed pretty far at this point. She's had it for a long time. Impacts a lot of her ability to do things and just to walk mainly, but just really most stuff around the house, taking care of herself. Fatigue is super high, which is always a problem, hard even to get out of bed. And some cognitive issues also that come with it. So it's a challenge for her, obviously. We also have a son who's 6. So with COVID and everything going on in the school situation and my wife's health issues and my son being home, it's difficult. It can be tough. That's probably an understatement. It can be really tough. Just the heavy lifting of taking care of our son, taking care of my wife, the house, laundry, cooking, etc. The impact on our relationship. No surprise, right? Things change a lot when you go through that, being relatively almost completely healthy person to where she is now. So the failure, right? So in that context, we took a trip. We were driving back today, Sunday. A little stressful, just driving back on a Sunday. I've worked the next day, a little tired from the trip. Son in the back seat for a few hours in the car, traffic, as I mentioned, all that stuff. And we had a rest stop issue, right? We stopped at a rest stop, got some snacks, son went to the bathroom, and then 20 minutes later, my wife had to go. And that's part of her MS, actually. It's just that need to have to go, and you can't really plan for it. It just happens. And I handled it super poorly for all the reasons I've stated already on this video, both just in general with the condition and all that, plus the trip itself. I got angry. I got frustrated, resentful even, made her feel guilty. We had to pull off. It ended up being, I don't know, maybe a 30-minute detour to find the place, which is a little bit of a process to find the place that would let us use the bathroom with COVID. And just the process of getting everybody out of the car and the masks, and she uses a walker and all that stuff. And I realize even as I say it and as I've been thinking about it, right, there's these different parts of the math, I guess I'll call it the equation, as I think everything comes back to that drives, all of our actions and our decisions. There's a part of it where I look at it and I say, clear as day, conceptually I understand, like I can't act that way. It's by no fault of hers that she has to use the restroom. Sure, it's frustrating, right? We just stopped at a rest stop 20 minutes earlier. We're about an hour from home, so it's kind of an annoying time to have to stop. Traffic is building up, so any detour is going to add to that. But my son's in the back seat. My wife is somebody that I love. Why would that be the reaction, right? On a logical level, conceptually, makes no sense. It's not me being a good father. It's not me being a good husband. It's not the behavior I want to model for my son. It's not the way I want to make my wife feel when she's going through, a difficult time. Makes no sense. But as many of you know, I don't believe in a makes no sense argument, right? There's a logic behind everything we do. We do it for a reason. So I can also look at the other side of the equation, if you will, and say, well, it's pretty clear. Stressful. It's difficult. It was a big deal to have to pull off and find a restroom and go through the whole process and the traffic and, already tired from the vacation, all the things I said. So all right, yeah, it makes sense. And much like I would say to other people, right? Because I spend a lot of time on these videos, probably more than I should, talking about other people and their approach to handling different situations and how they're thinking and all that. And I try and preach a better approach, hopefully, or at least something that I think might be better. If I try and apply that to myself here, it starts to come out pretty clear. I'm using those things as excuses. And it's not that they're not true. They are true. The situation is super difficult. It's challenging. There's a lot that's asked of me in these situations. But it's unproductive to focus on that. And that's what I've been doing, right? That's what I focus on. Because it's frustrating. It's difficult. It makes me angry that the situation is what it is, that things have to be harder than they have to be. And I see an opportunity to give myself an out. So I take it. Right? I look at all those things and I say, hey, if the person grading this test isn't a PhD, right? If my professor, this hypothetical professor that'd be looking at my math work here, they're gonna think my answer's right? Like they could look at this and they'll check and they'll see all the work and they'll say like, yeah, it checks out. You had a right to be angry. You had a right to be frustrated. But I know better, right? I know that if that professor that's checking it really knows what they're doing, they're gonna look and say, hey, this doesn't add up. This doesn't work. But I almost hide that from myself, at least in the moment, right? Afterwards, I step back and I see it and I check all the math and I say, yeah, I got that wrong. But then it gets back into the moment again, right? The next issue, whatever it is. And I allow myself to revert right back. I allow myself to go back to saying, yeah, I think I'm okay. I think I'm okay calling this out. And to me, it highlights so deeply the need to just be honest, obviously, be genuine, have the humility to be honest, and just get in the mud, as I'll call it, right? Get in the mud and face those inconvenient truths, because it's just not productive otherwise. I guess it ultimately comes back to what it always comes back to. What's your objective? If my objective is to make myself feel better, protect my identity, coddle my ego, however you want to word it, then there's a deep logic to it that makes sense. Even perhaps beyond all that, if it's just laziness is my objective, like I don't want to do the work it would take to handle this type of difficult situation the right way, then again, I could do my math as I've been doing it and say like, yeah, no, you don't have to. You're being asked to do too much, so you don't have to do anything else. You're good. Both, who knows, of those reasons, whatever it is, or those objectives, it leads to the behavior I've been acting towards. But if the objective is the one that I'd like to believe it is, which is, to be the best husband and father that I can be, and just generally do the right thing for somebody who's suffering, to try and help when you can, and right, they haven't done anything wrong, well, then it makes no sense. It makes no sense when that objective is factored in. And I think it's just the perfect example for me, which hopefully I can use to, most importantly, better myself and be a better dad and husband. But also when I'm thinking about other people, it's the perfect example of a time in which it gets cloudy. It gets cloudy, it gets convoluted, and you take advantage of that fog of war almost, if you will. You say like, hey, this is messy enough, again, where if somebody was checking my work, I think I can get by on this. But what's the point of getting by? There's nothing productive in that. There's nothing to be gained. It's just for me. It's just for me to not have to do the additional work. And it's just not good enough.